country of Israel held national elections, its third national elections, in a space of 12 months, very recently. And the results of those elections were quite inconclusive. We had the right-wing bloc led by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's Likud party. They gained the most seats in the parliament, known as Knesset in Israel. They gained the most seats, but they still failed to reach a majority. Whereas the party, the blue and white bloc, left-wing bloc, led by Benny Gantz, did not get as many seats, but looked more likely to actually get a majority with the support of outside parties by making a coalition. And actually it was Benny Gantz, through the recommendations of the Arab majority joint list, who was given the right to form a government first by the Israeli president. So it almost looked like an end to the era of Benjamin Netanyahu, who was also due to go into court this month, in the month of March, for corruption and bribery, to face corruption and bribery charges. That trial has been delayed due to the coronavirus outbreak. But just when people thought that Benny Gantz was about to become Israel's new prime minister, with the support of the left-wing parties as well as the Arab majority joint list, and including the Ultra-nationalist and secularist party of Avigdor Lieberman, who was a former ally of Benjamin Netanyahu but has recently turned against him. With the support of these big players, these kingmakers, Benny Gantz looked very likely to become the Prime Minister of Israel. However, one thing that we did not anticipate was what happened to the position of the parliamentary speaker. Now, formerly, the position of the parliamentary speaker was in the hands of the Likud party, and actually the parliamentary speaker, Netanyahu's ally, was actually trying to delay the recommencing of the parliament in which a replacement was likely to be elected, because the parliament speaker believed that what was actually going on in Israel, with the anti-Netanyahu parties uniting to kick Likud out of the equation, he believed that this was some kind of coup, some kind of conspiracy against democracy, by taking this power away from Netanyahu to form a government, despite his party being the leading party in the polls. So, excuse me. So, the parliamentary speaker was trying to delay the process of electing his replacement, and through the order of a high court, he was forced to recommence the parliamentary sessions. However, instead of doing that, he chose to resign, believing that it was better for his own interest to resign from his position rather than commence a parliamentary session in which his replacement would be elected. And actually what winded up happening was, surprisingly, that Benny Gantz, Netanyahu's main rival, who was due to become prime minister, could have very well become prime minister. He instead became the new parliamentary speaker. This was greeted by his supporters, the people who voted for the blue and white bloc, as a betrayal of the Israeli opposition. Benny Gantz, in effect, became an ally of Benjamin Netanyahu and earned Benjamin Netanyahu another term as prime minister, a term in which it is more than likely that his trial will not commence while he is in power. So what ended up happening is, with the main opposition leader abandoning the opposition and joining forces with Netanyahu, albeit with the intention of forming a greater unity government in order to combat the coronavirus crisis. What winded up happening is there was a split in the Israeli opposition. The Israeli left wing completely split. Many of the backers of the blue and white bloc did not accept Benny Gantz's decision. Benny Gantz took his party out of the blue and white bloc, joined it with Netanyahu, whereas big players such as Yair Lapid, who is a leader of a big party in the blue and white bloc, he refused to join. So actually, in effect, now Yair Lapid has become the new opposition head in Israel. He is a left-wing, and he continues to fight against Benjamin Netanyahu's domination over Israeli politics. Another major development was also that Avigdor Lieberman, who was tipped to be the kingmaker in the Israeli elections, he was made completely irrelevant. Now, Avigdor Lieberman, he did not contest against the forming of a unity government. However, being that he is right-wing, and being that Netanyahu is right-wing, it would have been natural for anyone to assume that Avigdor Lieberman would back Netanyahu over his left-wing rivals to form a government. However, the animosity of Lieberman towards Netanyahu is so great that he actually goes against his own political agenda by backing the left wing, by backing Benny Gantz to become the new prime minister. But with Benny Gantz now abandoning the opposition, Avigdor Lieberman has become completely irrelevant to Israeli politics. Another main group which is feeling the betrayal probably the most, more than any other group in Israel, is the Joint List, which is a coalition of Arab parties, pro-Palestinian parties in Israel. They are actually the third largest party in the Israeli parliament. However, due to their nature of being pro-Palestinian, it makes it very difficult for any Israeli party, be they left-wing or right-wing, to work with them in any kind of coalition. Now, the Joint List realized that for them, Benny Gantz was the lesser of two evils when compared to Netanyahu. So Benny Gantz was not in a position to accept the Joint List into his government, into a coalition government. Therefore, the Joint List could not join in any kind of coalition. That would have probably lost Benny Gantz many supporters from other parties in the blue and white bloc. So the Joint List decided to show their support from the outside by recommending Benny Gantz to the Israeli president for him to be the first to get the opportunity to form a government. And because of that recommendation, Benny Gantz was actually given that opportunity. And perhaps many who support the Arab Joint List saw this as a doorway for them to make some kind of improvements, to improve the conditions of the Arabs and Palestinians who are Israeli citizens. However, with Benny Gantz siding with Netanyahu in the end, the Joint Lists themselves have also been pushed aside. So it's been a great betrayal for them, with Benny Gantz joining Netanyahu as his parliamentary speaker. So that's the situation in Israel.